I declare the meeting open and welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. The recording of this Council meeting will be available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, ma'am.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malacadee people of the Yuin River and the Lilliquanni people of the Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. In attendance tonight, we have Deputy Mayor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup and Councillor Burgess. We have Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Camber-Smith and Councillor Robertson. CEO, can you introduce your staff, please?
Sure. In attendance tonight we have Paddy Johnson, Director of People and Corporate, Matthew Grimsey, Director of Governance, Strategy and Sustainable Development, Lyle Ground, Acting Director of Community Wellbeing, Sue McCarter, Acting Director of Infrastructure, Climate and Environment, and our support officers Kelly Davis and Sandy Rustel.
Thank you. In non-attendance, we have no apologies tonight, we have no leave of absence tonight and no absent. Councillors, does anyone wish to declare an interest in any of tonight's agenda items? Yes, I'll go Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just like to declare an interest in the closed meeting agenda item 1913-2. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson.
Yes, I'll declare an interest in closed council agenda item 19.01824, the Huon Valley Community Awards.
Thank you. And Councillor Thorpe.
Yeah, I'm declaring a conflict of interest in closed council agenda item 19.13.1.
Thank you. Do I have any others? Nope. Okay, thank you. 4, confirmation of minutes, 4.004/24. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council, 27th of March 2024, as circulated, be confirmed? Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder, Councillor Gibson. Do any councillors wish to report any changes? If that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. CEO, are there any legislative items tonight?
No.
Urgent matters?
No.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of Mayor's announcements. Number one is I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the Dover Friends of the Dover Medical Services for the hugely successful barbecue they held to welcome the new doctors into the town. It was a huge amount of work, and the acting director and I attended, and we could both say we were pretty proud of the community and the efforts that they've done for the doctors, and it was very much appreciated. I'd also like to, and there's a flyer there for anyone to take in the gallery, the HMAS Yuin Freedom of Entry is on Saturday the 4th of May, and that is joining us to welcome the crew of the HMAS Yuin to Yuinville as they perform a traditional Freedom of Entry ceremony in celebration of their service to the Royal Australian Navy. And you might have all heard or not, but Dark Lab has their final permission from Depeewee for the Transformer project. So there has been a media release on that, and Dark Lab have said that at this stage they would expect construction to begin in mid-25 at the earliest, with about a 9-month build time. So I know that there's a lot of tourist operators that are very happy to hear that news. Also, Huon Valley Council, along with Tas Police, are actively participating in this year's National Road Safety Week, and that is from the 5th to the 12th of May. And there's some information, and there will be some media releases on this as we get closer. But one of the things that we have been requested to do is to make a pledge, and my pledge is that I will drive as if my loved ones are on the road ahead of me. So there'll be more to do with Road Safety Week as it comes around. So then we have Anzac Day tomorrow. We have Anzac Day sports over on the Little Ass area in Yountville here, and that starts at 12 noon, and it's always a really good day for the kids and parents. And all the Anzac Day services are on our site as well as in the Huon News this week. But I'd just like to finish on a poem for the spirit of Anzac. But the Anzac stood and still stands for reckless valour in a good cause, for enterprise, for ruthlessness, resourcefulness, fidelity, comradeship, and endurance that will never own defeat. So thank you. Now we're on to public participation. Public question time. There was one question taken on notice from March Council meeting from Dr. Liz Smith. That response is on our website and will be included in the minutes. Questions given on notice. There was one question given on notice at tonight's meeting from David Pennell. The response is on the website and included in the minutes. So, now we're on to questions without notice, and that's welcome to public question time. Do I have anybody that would like to ask a question? Yes, Dr. Smith.
Liz Smith, Signet. First, I'd like to thank you for the very comprehensive response to my question last month. That was, for me, very interesting. Thank you. It's great to have a climate change officer on board, and the Council is working towards adaptations to climate change and protection of biodiversity in the Valley. It was particularly good to learn that implementation of the revised NRM strategy, now renamed Land, Air and Water Strategy, is scheduled for next financial year and will involve establishment of a community working group to drive community-based NRM and climate-focused programs. So hopefully this working group will consider how developments in the Valley will impact on climate by seeking carbon footprints and potential greenhouse gas emissions resulting from development. So, as the Mayor just noted, it was reported yesterday in the Mercury that the Transformer project has now been approved by Parks and Wildlife Service. In 2019, the state government allocated $2.7 million to help the Huon Valley recover from the bushfires earlier that year, and it's not clear how the state government expected the money to be spent for the benefit of the community. Dark Lab proposed the Transformer project at Ida Bay, with the cost at that time estimated at $8.7 million, and the current estimate of the cost of the Transformer project is not available. I don't know whether any other projects were considered in 2019, but I guess it's a bit far to look back now. So my questions are, was the $2.7 million that was allocated in 2019 by the state government to be used for the benefit of the Huon Valley community provided directly for Dark Lab, or was it provided to the council? And has the council been informed of the current cost estimate and the business case for the Transformer project? So that's my first question. Do you want me to ask the second one at the same time, or will I get an answer for that?
I think we'll have to take that on notice, if that's okay for that part of it. Thank you.
Yes?
Next one. Yep.
Yeah, given that the visitor profiles appear to have changed since COVID, with many more visitors travelling in motorhomes, campervans or with caravans, would the potential increased length of stay through which the Transformer project was proposed to provide benefits to the community, would that still be seen as of primary importance? And if providing support for the project, would the Council require a climate impact statement based on the carbon footprint of the building and the carbon emissions of anticipated visitation from Hobart?
Oh, thank you. We've already given. Take it all on notice. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I look forward to responses.
Thank you. Do we have any other? Yes, Kat.
Hello, Caleb Elcock from Dover, through you, Mayor. A little while ago, I came across a number of interesting articles published on or through the Tasmanian Times surrounding the general manager matter, let's say. Now, I do understand that it's forbidden knowledge to ask these questions, so I'll phrase a different question, and that is, does the council view the Tasmanian Times as a legitimate news outlet that a regular human being like myself can rely on and trust? Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. I think we have made it known that we do not take the Tasmanian Times as, what do you call it? Yeah, legitimate, I suppose. But
Yeah, they're not recognised as a legitimate media source.
Okay, thank you.
do we have any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Sandy. 8.2. Do we have any deputations?
No.
Petitions?
No.
Thank you. 10, Planning Authority. We have no reports for Council to consider as planning. So 11, General Reports. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? Yes. And would anyone like to speak to their activities? No? Okay. Yes, Councillor. Yep.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that we hosted the Dover District School. There was a really good conversation with a couple of young ladies that attended the school, and they're very interested in what happens in the future of Dover and for the wellbeing of the Huon. And I just would like to point out that they were incredibly articulate and quite well spoken for their age, and I really enjoyed the conversation with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know they appreciated it too, so that's good. Okay, so 11.004/24, that the 11.004/24 general reports and minutes for March 24 be received and noted. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports for that from 1 to 31st of March be received and noted? Councillor Armstrong, do I have a seconder? Councillor Camber-Smith? Do you wish to speak to that? No, thank you. Yep. Do I have any other? No? Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all. And the motion is carried. Okay. So, 12. Would you like to speak on workshops being held? Thank you,
Sure.
CEO.
6th of March, we undertook a fees and charges workshop looking at the 24-25 financial year. proposed charges. These were discussed in depth and will be coming forward for the May 2024 meeting of Council for endorsement. We also had an update from the Manager of Economic Development, updating councillors on our brand strategy, its value and its importance in supporting our local economy. We also had the communication strategy, which was a draft communication and engagement strategy for discussion. Councillors had a 2-week period to provide comment, and that's informed the development of the framework and action plan that we're moving forward with now. We also presented the draft of managing unacceptable customer behaviour policy and procedure and administrative review and update for the customer service charter. This is a draft policy and report that'll be discussed in detail before coming back to councillors for endorsement. On the 10th of April, we discussed the Franklin Petty Sessions jetty. The status of the existing jetty was discussed with a view to further consideration of the proposal for council to take on that jetty lease. We also discussed the rates. So Director of People and Corporate Services provided an update on the status of a strategic rates review. And I gave a presentation on and a discussion on the proposed restructure for the organisation. That's all.
Thank you. That was okay. 13.1 questions to answers to questions taken on notice. There was a question from Councillor Burgess that was answered and will be in the minutes. So 13.2 questions given on notice. There was no councillor questions given on notice. 13.3 questions without notice. Councillors, are there any questions tonight? Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. There have been a number of recent reports on homelessness in Tasmania just recently, including Housing All Australians report revealing the high levels of youth homelessness, Anglicare's 2024 snapshot showing rental affordability in Tasmania is at an all-time low, and research reported in The Guardian that home ownership is becoming an almost impossible dream without years of financial stress. In the light of these reports, and Council's own State of the Valley report revealing that small affordable homes and rentals are the biggest requirement for our community over the coming years, can Council please advise how a planned analysis of a $65,000 planned analysis of rural living zoning and its possible extension will help provide affordable homes and rentals for those struggling to find a roof over their head?
Thank you. I'll pass that through to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, the study for rural living is not guided by small affordable homes. The rural living zone was raised many times during the LPS hearings, and the TPC limited its considerations of any proposals to extend or densify existing areas until such time as there was some supporting strategic work undertaken. The Land Use Development Strategy provides the guiding principles for this work. That said, if there is an extension or densification of rural living areas, this will create more rural lots on which affordable homes can be constructed.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I have two questions. One's quite basic. I've been asked by a couple of members of the public around the bins along the esplanade down on the river. Apparently they don't have dog disposal facilities, so no bag for doggy doos. And the member of the public, just one particular, made a comment that it sort of makes it less pleasant to use that space. I'm just wondering, is there any plans to upgrade the bins along there or to do that? Or can we look into it?
Oh, yes. I was going to answer, but I know someone's pressing his button, so off you go.
You can answer.
No.
Have a crack.
Well, I was just going to say that I've asked this question about other areas for adding the bags, and we are just providing something that someone should take themselves. Are you talking about the bag that you pick up the Yeah,
I-
or
I've-
the bin.
Well, are they? Do you have just a bag disposal that you put in the bin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think a public place like the Esplanade, there's a health and safety issue. You don't want, and yes, I agree. Dog owners should take their own stuff home, or bring their own bags. But in those instances where a dog is maybe caught short, you have a lot of kids playing along there and stuff, and
Now I'll hand it over.
Yeah, look, the Mayor's right. It's not a service we currently provide. We have many areas in the valley where people would love to have that type of facility, and we have areas where currently dog owners are expected to pick after themselves and take the necessary receptacles. If councillors want us to cost up what that looks like, then we can bring that forward in our budget considerations.
And I think for high public use, but like I know, for example, dog walking areas like the showground, I think dog owners are pretty responsible with doing it. But high public use areas, I think, wouldn't be a bad thing, maybe. Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a second one if I'm allowed.
So maybe you can put a budget bid in.
I did. I'll have to get the infrastructure people to cost that for me. How many, the ongoing cost of dog bags.
Yeah.
And let me say that I'm a strongly believer that dog owners should take responsibility in many ways for their dogs who, get away and kill livestock and poo in the wrong places.
Yep. Thank you.
The second one, and I could have asked this in the report, Mayor, but I missed that chance. I noticed that both in the answer to, I should say, Councillor Liz's question, Liz's question about the, and in the report from the NRM group, it seems to be accepted that the NRM policy is now called the Land, Air, Water Policy. Now, I went to one of the workshops where a number of people said that they didn't think that was a fait accompli. So I'm just wondering who made the policy decision on behalf of council to rename our policy?
Okay, I think I might hand that through to
somebody.
Yep, to the acting director.
I'd probably have to take it partially on notice, but what I can say is that obviously there's a working group that is working as assisting council in developing this policy or this strategy. And certainly the draft has that name, but we still have to go through a number of engagement. We have to engage yourselves as councillors. We need to engage the public. And certainly we will consider all feedback we get, and that could be on the title and what is an accepted title for the broader community.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I did have
You're
a
right.
second
No,
one.
that's fine.
A person in Judbury contacted me at the beginning of summer with respect to access to water over dry periods. And I was kindly advised about water licensing from the river, which I advised. He's now written back asking that in light of the excessive dryness, particularly in the Judbury area, where I think the soil dryness index is about 166 out of a maximum of 200. And he asked if there's any possible way, and I don't know if this is anything that council can help with, for graziers to get access, obviously presumably paid access to hydrant water, if needed in times of excessive drought, such as now, in order to water their livestock.
Pass that through to the CEO.
Yeah, I mean that is a matter for TasWater, but we could certainly inquire of TasWater on their behalf, and you can get back to that community member with some advice.
Thank you. Do I have any others? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question around the extra doctors, which is great to see. I noticed that it was there's a 1 week on, 1 week off with the doctors, and I just had a question about continuity of care and whether that's a long-term arrangement or a short-term.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass that through to the acting director.
In terms of the 1 week on, 1 week off, that's an interim arrangement as we make provision for some of our doctors' personal, principally Dr. Patrick's personal circumstances. So at this stage, that is the plan. In terms of continuity of care, it'll be the same doctor. So we rotate between the two doctors. So each alternating week, we'll have the same doctor on. So the continuity is there.
Okay, do I have any other? No, thanks guys, thank you for that. 13.4, are there any notices of motion for tonight's meeting? No. You don't have any reports? No reports? No, you've done that, haven't we? Okay, right. Report number 15.012/24, consent to develop outside the building envelope applicable to 26 Bull Oak Way, Grove, CT 181367-5. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Yes, Councillor O'Neill. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Robertson. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor O'Neill?
Oh no, not much to say, but yep, I'm on. Yep. Just good to see that we a bit of flexibility in our planning and a good common sense decision.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Through you, Mayor, sorry, I've just got a question about this because I noted, I think we discussed this a few meetings ago, a very similar situation, didn't we? So my question is, when we're planning these things and we give people permission to do these things, it seems that, I don't know how many people have built up there, maybe 4, 3, 4, 2. I went up and had a bit of a peruse. What's the point in setting a criteria if everyone's going to be wanting to do something different to the criteria that's set?
I agree.
So I'm just a bit, people that need to build, they all seem to be talking about needing to go outside the envelope. Why do we have an envelope in the first place then? It seems a bit weird.
Okay,
Thank
I
you,
can
Mayor.
pass that one through to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, the consideration of covenants, Part 5 agreements and restrictions on land are to take into account consideration of the approval of the application under the planning scheme that was in force at the time. We have circumstances here where there is a new planning scheme, so when you then go and individually assess an application to go outside the covenant, you still consider those matters, but where they may have had higher importance in the previous scheme, they don't in the current one.
Thank you for that explanation. But the whole thing just seems a bit preposterous if whilst they were important in the last scheme, they're not as important in this scheme when it's the same property and we're talking about the same thing. So which is not a reflection on council, it's reflection on the legislation and the way the state governs things, I understand. But it was a fairly big development. And I also understand that going outside the covenant's not really a big deal because it's not a massive thing that they're asking. But it all just seems a bit preposterous from my point of view as a councillor. And probably most people would agree with me realistically because it's stupid and I just, it's just a lot of bull dust really. But thanks for the explanation.
Can I just,
Yes.
just add to that for the purpose of it? Because the current scheme actually covers a lot of the matters that weren't covered in the previous scheme, those are more rigorously assessed under new applications. So they've got clearer reasons and justification in relation to the placing of the covenants and things which go on in those circumstances. So it should theoretically reduce as
From this
we
point on.
go.
So, just going back to that, so the request for this, that would be a costing process for these people involved? Would it?
I'm presuming that there's a fee for that one.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson?
So, once, assuming we approve this, moving out of this designated building area, it then goes through and seeks a DA and building approval separately.
Through you, Mayor, the development application, the planning permit's already been issued.
Okay,
So
it's
their
the other way
ability,
around.
their ability to actually exercise it without us enforcing the covenant means that they need to get permission from council.
And do you know what the basis for those envelopes was? Was it environmental, steepness? What was the?
I can't give you full detail, but there were, from memory, there were bushfire hazard management, environmental considerations were the two primary ones. There may also have been some consideration of landslide. Yeah.
I noticed that there's quite a lot of fill for this house, where it goes out of that area. So that's probably the reason.
Yes. Is there any other? Well, then we'll go to you. Do you, Dave? Yep.
No, all good, Mayor.
Yep.
My view is probably a bit different. I think we sometimes put too many restrictions on what people can do, and yep. So all good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put that motion forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is Councillor Doyle, Thorpe, Armstrong, Jessup, Burgess, Gibson, O'Neill and Canberra Smith. And against? Sorry, I didn't mean that. Robertson, and then against is Canberra Smith. Thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry, Jenny. I knew what I meant. Yeah, no, I just was thinking that I had to say Jenny next, but okay, thank you. Audit panel, appointment of independent members, 15.013/24. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Thorpe, and a seconder. Councillor Jessup. Councillor Thorpe, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Just briefly, as a councillor sits on the audit panel with Councillor Burgess, I think the important parts of this recommendation is this the staggered appointment of our independent members to ensure sustainability and continuity of the audit panel, considering its work program at the moment is not finished. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's a bit of a change, as these independent members will be appointed in a staggered approach. So we may have to revisit the appointment of independent members more regularly, but I think it's a good move.
Yep, thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. While I was acting Deputy Mayor, I attended one of the meetings, and I think it's a very valuable and important committee to have. There's certainly some structural elements that I think will evolve as it matures, but I certainly support the idea of a turnover of members, and AICD, Australian Institute of Company Directors, has certain suggestions that they make every 3 to 6 years sort of type thing, because I think you don't want groupthink sort of coming in, and certainly the staggering of external members I think is a very good idea. I suppose one of the concerns I have is that councillors, if they don't have a background in audit or in finance, going onto these committees, it's a big jump in a way, because you are talking about an abstracted level of governance more than just around this table. And I know we have a limited training budget for councillors generally, but I think those councillors who put up their time, put up their hand and their time for this job should certainly be considered for extra training, and how we factor that in, I'm not sure. And company director programs run good courses, but I would certainly say that looking at the agenda and the frequency of the meetings, it's probably the most demanding subcommittee of the council, and I think those councillors who are willing to do it should be given the skill set to do it well, because it is an important way of really looking at things in depth. And I must admit, I was very pleased by the way the council staff engage very openly, and Lachie, I think that you should be congratulated for that, because I've certainly been to audit committees where where staff have spent all their time trying not to answer questions, whereas there was clearly an openness and a willingness to answer questions, and I thought that was very positive. So I certainly think well, we have to have one, but I also think it's the audit committee is something we need to invest in, both from councillors and the external members. So I certainly support the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
You've got a couple of budget bids to do then, haven't you? Okay. Do I have any? Yes, Councillor Robertson.
I'd echo that support for the staggered terms. I think the investment in ensuring continuity but also fresh eyes at this level is important, and that staggered approach is a very useful way to deliver that.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments? No? Well, if that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Appointment of acting chair on the Huon Valley Jobs. We're right, boys? Appointment of acting chair of the Huon Valley Jobs Hub Authority. 15.014/24. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Yep. Councillor Armstrong, a seconder. Councillor Camber-Smith. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to speak to that?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy with it.
Okay. Do I have any other comments?
I just have one brief question.
Yep.
Is the leave that the chair's taking expected to be any longer, or very much contained in those times?
I'll have to pass that through to the CEO.
No, it's my understanding it's contained in that time, yeah.
Okay. You don't need to close, Councillor Armstrong? Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Financial report 16.005/24. I refer councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Jessup, seconder. Councillor Burgess. Councillor Jessup, you would like to open on this?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just finding my page. No, look, I think the report's self-explanatory. Obviously, the one thing that I would like to congratulate staff for is chipping away at our deficit to now be a case of a $791,000 deficit. Not many councils in the state can say that they're actually reducing their deficit, General Manager and Paddy, so I congratulate your staff for that. I suppose what would be useful at some point, and we've got some information here, but I just want to make sure that we're not reducing our deficit by not doing things that we should be doing or charging excessively. But I think just looking at this, we seem to have got a bit of grant funding extra. We've obviously benefited being a net depositor from our interest rates. We've been very lucky there, unlike the rest of Australians who own homes. But I can't see anything that points to us not doing things that we should be doing. But if we can confirm that in the discussion, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to go through. Would you like to just give a run of that for me, please? Thank you.
We're very much not in that vein of thought at the moment. It's very much business as usual and conducting the activities that we're looking to conduct. Obviously, there's always timing issues in terms of getting monies out the door or undertaking certain activities, and that's probably or could be reflective of some of those amounts there. The amounts that we have put in there as savings are ones that we're guaranteed realisation. So there are some that are still in the throes of being looked at and, could come to fruition at 30 June this year.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm all good on the financial front, but one concern is the decrease in development application fees due to a slowdown in activity. I think that's a concern with our current rent and housing situation. Thank you.
Sure is. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered when the investment policy comes up for renewal. I wondered if the director
Okay.
could advise, because I saw there's a number of policies are coming up for review during this coming financial year. Does the
Okay.
investment policy, is the investment policy included?
Okay, and I'll pass that through to the director.
Through you, Mayor, the investment policy does come up. I believe it's in the second stage of review, so that would be any draft to be circulated to councillors in May.
Okay. Do I have any other? No? Councillor Jessup?
No, I'm happy to move on, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Proposed road name 16.006/24. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Armstrong? No? Any other comments on this road? Port Signet Drive, it's pretty... Yeah. Yes, Councillor O'Neill?
It's not very inspiring.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, the motion is carried. Report number 16.0077/24, status report, quarterly outstanding rate debtors. Do I have a councillor? I'll refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Yes, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong?
I haven't really got a comment. I mean, what would you say? Please pay us. Thank you, Mayor.
Do we have any other comments on this one?
I just have one quick question, and I'm
Yes.
sorry if I'm repeating. I'm still catching up on a little thing, on a few little things from my time away. But and debt recovery is not something I have any skills in or experience before. But I'm just wondering if we'd done any benchmarking or, is the commission that we're paying the Tasmanian Collection Service equivalent? Is there other services, or is this the only one that we can use? Because 20% to me just seems like this number. It seems 20% is the commission rate. It just seems quite high for debt recovery.
Okay, thank you. I will pass that through to the director.
Through you, Mayor. It is something that's on the list to be assessed at the moment, and we are looking at the fees. There were alternatives where we did have somebody actually employed by council that did chase the outstanding rates debt, but obviously their salary would have exceeded that amount there. So it is something that is very much in the forefront of our minds to review. There is no other... as far as I'm aware, other businesses such as this that would undertake rates recovery. It's not the most easiest of, debts to chase. So that's why we use TCS at the moment. But yes, there is a review underway in relation to that activity.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson?
The very old unpaid rates, do they, is there a way of, like, I understand that at the point of sale of a house that we have access to that money, is that correct?
I'll pass that through to the director. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, it is correct. It has been undertaken in council before, as far as I'm aware. It's not something that we obviously take lightly, and we endeavour to take all avenues to receive that money in other ways. It is analysed to see where we're at and what we can do, and that's a process that myself and the manager of customer service is also looking at the moment.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Councillor Armstrong, you? All right. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 17.003/24, NRM Crowned Land, Friends of Mosquito Point. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Please. Councillor Armstrong and a Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong.
No, thank you, Mayor. Nothing to say.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on this one? Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I certainly understand the position of council on this, and I think to run around seeking licences for all the NRM groups is a risky business from a liability point of view, and whatever obligations come over to us as a council. And I certainly understand from memory discussions with previous ones, parks are very happy to give us a number of obligations that they might not do themselves, in fact. But I'm wondering, and it goes to the sort of concept of a community connector role that I'm quite keen on. Yeah, I still would really like to support these groups do that work, and often they're very dedicated individuals who live nearby and who really want to, add value to that land to use. And licensing may not be the way to do it and taking the obligation, but do we have how can we help these groups? Can we give them, for example, if they want to take their own licence, can we give them a grant to pay the insurance, for example, that they need to pay? And I'm very also acutely aware that our massive NRM team is one and a tad, and they have to do all the weed management and all the policy work and all the everything else work. So I'm very keen not to commit them to too much. But do they give advisory support, and do we have a equipment rental thing or loan scheme? So I'm just wondering what else we can do for these groups. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I'll pass that through to...
Thanks for the question, Mark, and yeah, it's a good one. So when we were looking at this one, it was looking at where we can make the biggest impact. So we do support the group. So currently, from an NRM perspective, we do provide technical advice. So we have a weed officer that can assist them in best control methods, things like that. We also have a container that is full of equipment that we do loan out for free to these land care groups. We do support them in their registration, which helps them with the insurance component. So their registration with Land Care Tasmania. Council supports them, and you'll see when you see the new draft strategy, the law strategy as it's currently called, that these land care groups are critical to us. As you said, we have a very small staff complement in the NRM section, so we have to work with our partners, being these land care groups, to deliver on what the strategy says. So yeah, we have a suite of current ways that we support them, but we are looking at additional ways that we can support them, be it grant writing, be it yes, maybe looking at how we tackle the lease side of things, but not us then taking it on.
Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Thank you. There is also the nursery that's providing a whole number of native plants to these people. But it was my understanding when I was part of the Friends of Billy Brown's Falls Land Care group, that Land Care Association actually paid the insurance. So they do get outside help, not just from council as well. But yeah, I they do tremendous work, and we should support them where we can.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I was wondering whether Landcare could take out the lease for them, seeing as they're a Landcare group. Is that a possibility or not?
I'd have to take that one on notice and chat to Peter, who's the CEO of Landcare Tasmania.
Yes, Councillor Robertson.
There's mention within the motion of leasing and licensing. I think this is mainly a discussion around a licence, although the word lease is used a couple of times. What are the reporting obligations on a lease or a licence? And I guess comparing to that work authority with an annual reporting obligation, which is the standard for other groups, and which I gather would give us valuable feedback for our annual oversight of these groups and our annual report data and so forth. I guess I'm just interested in the comparison about that reporting or accountability workload through the different instrument, whether it's a lease or a licence.
Is that something to take on notice, or?
It might be a Matt question in terms of the differences, but certainly we have our own means of, we collect a lot of data from our land care groups, not necessarily through the mechanisms of the lease or license reporting, but certainly we have our own sort of data collection through the NRM team and directly with that land care group in terms of our current and potentially our future strategy and how we report on those different actions we have. So we do have a direct line to get that information and not necessarily through a lease report, if that makes sense.
Any other questions? You want to close, Councillor?
Yeah, I just would like to say, you know, a big thank you to all the people that do look after these areas, because it is more than a full-time job. You know, it's a massive, and I mean, when we drive around, we can all see the results of their work. But at the same time, hoping that they appreciate that if council were to open up the floodgates, so to speak, of taking on this lease or that lease, it's a huge area to cover. There'd be a lot of leasing, permits, whatever involved. But it sounds like I didn't realise that we share resources and equipment with them. So hopefully that can continue and perhaps get better and bigger as we go along to enable them to still be able to do these things that need to be done.
Thank you. If that's the case, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Oh. 19, closed council. We're about to move. No? What have I got? Yeah. No, community wellbeing. We're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery tonight for attending and those watching at home. The next ordinary meeting of council is on Wednesday the 22nd of May at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Liz. Thank you. So 19.01/24, the recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
6:52.
Pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations to discuss the following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Gibson, a seconder. Councillor Burgess. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meeting, recording of the open session of the council meeting ceased at